So you've bought land and you want to live on it. Let's talk about the different ways on how you can. Now, the first and most effective method, which is the one I've used, is the field to farm method. Now, this simply is building yourself a small farm, building up an agricultural business, so you warrant the man hours to live on site. Now, basically, to be able to do this, you need 12.5 acres. Now, that gives you enough land to give you the permitted development rights. Now, with your permitted development, straight away, that means you can put barns in, and you can also do anything agricultural related. So you can put down tracks, and you can also apply for livestock housing, and most importantly for quite a few people, polytunnels. Usually with polytunnels, they'll make you get planning permission, but if you've got the permitted development rights for 12.5 acres, you can put up 2,500 square meters of polytunnel under permitted development rights. And lastly, the thing I like the most, you can build ponds for irrigation. Now, like I say, all of this is just a given if you've got 12.5 acres. You can do that whether you've actually got animals or anything. You can just apply for that under the premise that you want to run a farm on it. Now, when it comes to a house, it is slightly different. They will make you put in some sort of application that basically warrants you living there. So to demonstrate warranting living there, you will need to hit, most importantly, the man hours, of which you will need 275, as they call it. Now, your two best methods to hit those man hours are pigs and market gardening. You can do other stuff like cows and chickens and stuff, but I'll show you in a second why these two are the best. So the simple one, and usually most easy for people to actually sell the meat at the end of the day, because you can just take them straight to market and sell the whole pig. It works out that one pig equals 4 man hours. So all you need to have is 15 pigs, and I'll show you why. So 15 times 15 equals 225 man hours. Combined gives you 285. Now, the second way, but probably most attainable, is a market garden. And this is a big boy. This is 1,300 man hours per acre. Now, that seems like a hell of a lot, but if you were market gardening an acre, you're not doing that on yourself very easily at all. That's a multiple person job, hence why it's so many man hours. But it does mean you only need about a third of an acre for one person. To be able to have your dwelling, even if you are a family of 7 like I am, you only need that one person to be employed by the farm to warrant these man hours. Which leads me on to the next step of this. Basically, these man hours are irrelevant to the council, effectively, if the farm doesn't make X amount of money a year. Now, this is, you need to make 18k and pay yourself that. And then on top of you paying yourself the 18k, you're going to need to make 25k in profit overall for investment into the farm in the future. Now, it's not to say that you need to do all this straight away. You just need to have a business plan that demonstrates over the course of about a 3-year period that you will going to be making that wage for yourself, and you're going to be making a profit substantial enough to reinvest into the farm that the business is viable effectively. But all of this is only if you want to have a brick and mortar house. If you are just after what is classed as a temporary dwelling, so that would be a lodge, a static caravan, something along those lines, you will only need to have the business plan that demonstrates you are going to do these things. And then that will allow you to get permission for your temporary dwelling for up to a 3-year period. Now, you can extend that permission, and depending on the council, they might not even bother making you do that at all. All depends on if they can see you're a valid business effectively, and if you are trying to progress the farm to a point where you will want to live there full time, and then, i.e., build your proper house, because that is all they want to see at the end of the day: a proper house going in and the value of the area going up ever so slightly, because there's an extra asset in the council's domain effectively. And I feel it kind of all makes sense, because if you are going down the route of the temporary dwelling and you're going to show the promise of doing all these sorts of things to demonstrate you need to live there all the time, and you don't actually do that, then it's not that much effort to actually get rid of everything off the site if it comes to you selling the land, etc., if everything falls under. And like I say, then that way the council do get businesses and farms, etc., that are going to be viable into the future. building houses, building barns, building infrastructure, increasing the value of the area, like I say, which is all they want to see effectively, that you're not going to be building a massive caravan site that is going to devalue everyone's house around you, because that's going to affect how much council tax they can charge, isn't it? And all these metrics may seem fairly hard to be hitting for someone outside of actually having a farm, but believe it or not, 15 pigs isn't very many pigs at all, and looking after the progeny from them won't be too difficult. It's basically going to require you an acre or two worth of land, and probably more if you're going to be wanting to farm them in a regenerative manner, because you're going to want to be moving them around more often. Or you're going to end up with pig sick land, as they call it. Pretty much if you keep pigs on the same area for far too long, you'll get such nutrient dense land that nothing will grow in it because it becomes poison. But these do tie in nicely together in that respect, because you can have your pigs on an area of your land for 1 year, move them the next, then in that same area, which will be fairly dead of plants and stuff because the pigs will have eaten through everything, plant your market garden. So you can twin together a combination of the two of these on a relatively small scale on a 3 to 5 acre farm, to be able to basically make the metrics that the council will want to see if you'd be able to apply for your temporary dwelling or your permanent dwelling, as long as you're making that bank. Which then, obviously, if you're only using 3 to 5 acres of it, frees up quite a bit of your land if you've bought the 12.5 acres to give you permitted development to be able to do all of this in the first place. And that means if you just wanted to do it as a bit of leisure stuff, you got a lot of land to play with. Or if you are getting into the farming, a lot more land and a lot more money that could be made. And in general, to be hitting these metrics, the market garden is probably going to be earning you more money overall than the pigs, unless you're selling all the meat directly to people. Now, the next method is far more simple to explain. Pretty much, if you're going to be doing things without planning permission, and then you're going to be hoping that over time, you're going to be unnoticed, and 10 years later, used to be 4 years later of living on site, that you'll be able to permanently keep whatever house you put on there forever with no one disturbing you. Now, I'll just straight off the bat say, next to impossible in most of England to do this. In parts of Wales and Scotland, probably you can get away with this, and that's all to do with being invisible, effectively. I know numerous people that have tried to do this in woods and stuff, even in the UK, and there's that many people around walking and all that sort of stuff. Someone's going to get jealous, someone's going to have a moan, someone is going to say something. So number one is you want to only try and do it without planning permission if you're willing to take a risk, and that's probably because it's a small piece of land with, as I mentioned before, no pre-development rights. So, invisible. Whatever you're doing on the land, whether it's living there or just doing small bits and pieces, without the permitted development rights, whatever you do outside of building a very small shed, the council can moan, people can moan, and they may make you remove stuff. So, invisible. Do stuff in such a way that it's not going to be causing a massive controversy for the neighbours going, oh, look at the size of that new shed they've put in the field, or that field shelter's just gone up, look at it. Try and do things that people can't see, effectively. And if you're on an open piece of land, first thing you want to do, plant trees. Seems obvious, but a lot of people I've spoke to on my various consultancy days haven't thought about actually putting in trees around their perimeter. Now, I would say something like conifers, obviously, because they grow fast. Many people don't like conifers. One of the people that I advised on didn't want to plant conifers. They wanted to plant all sorts of different hedgerows and stuff, but they didn't have enough invisibility on their land before they've done what they wanted to do, and that's actually sort of cost them not being invisible because people had a moan. So conifers are a great way to do that. Now, another way is earthworks. Basically, earth banks are real good because you can get yourself up 2, 3, 4 feet, basically just scraping out various bits of topsoil or whatever when you're putting in trackways and stuff like that. And basically then you've got half the battle done for you. Then on top of that, I would say trees as well. Now, as part of being invisible, as well as you're not rocking the boat, you are going to do things slowly. You're not going to do things too much at once because people don't like change. Minimum change. Now, the next thing you want to do if you are anywhere open and you do have neighbours and stuff is be friendly. Let people know what you're doing, because being a friend of someone is way less likely for them to have any problems with what you're doing, isn't it, at the end of the day? And if you get along with someone, they may even be wanting to help you do stuff, especially when it comes to things like fencing and all sorts of outdoor jobs. I've had plenty of offers off people in the village from over the years, helping them do things. Well, as when you get chatting to people in the area, it builds up connections as well. So I've also benefited from that, from people I've met in the local area. You get things for cheaper when you've got a bit of a deal going. So, like, for instance, for some wood or something like that. There's various bits and bobs that you can do with the people that you know in your local area to save you some money as well as some drama. Now, the next thing, which I kind of feel is the most important if you're going to be doing stuff completely with no planned permission, trying to do it outside the rules, and that is provide a value. Because if you are of a value to the people in your vicinity and in your local area in general, if you do get the council come a knocking, if you're providing a value, if you're providing a service, they are going to be way more inclined to let you continue doing that because you're bringing something to the area. You're not just someone who's evading council tax or something like that. Now, a great way to do this is obviously stuff like eggs at your gate, selling little animals, and then it could even be stuff like I've mentioned, or it can just be stuff like manual labour for people, offering your services out, clearing bits of hedgerow, mowing lawns, etc. If you've got the time and you want to make a good impression on people, why not offer your services and value to them? Now, should all of this work for you and you become a bit of a part of your local area and people don't really mind that you're living there and stuff like that, you'll be there 10 years, no problem, I should say. And then once you've got your 10 years, you can apply for a certificate of lawfulness. That means that whatever you're living in will become a permanent dwelling, so to speak. And then whatever footprint you've got, you can technically then put a brick and mortar house on the same footprint with no planning permission needed. You just need to get that certificate of lawfulness after 10 years. Now, obviously, in this day and age, and with everyone being the way they are, probably unlikely that you will hit the 10 years if you do rock the boat in any way, shape, or form, because people love to complain, don't they? I've had people complain against me before, and ultimately, I've been doing everything correctly. But if you're doing everything wrong, you're going to get yourself in a bit of a pickle, and they may ultimately make you take down whatever you build and kick you off the land for living there anyway, if you've been living there even 9 years and 362 days. Now, there is a bit of a grey area, so to speak. They cannot prove you are living there if you're paying council tax somewhere else. They're not going to be watching your land 24/7, even if you've got neighbours taking photographs and stuff like that. If you're paying council tax to live in a property in a town, etc., they can't say that you're living on your land. So as long as you're doing that, and you've got evidence to the contrary, basically personal photographs, personal videos, a blog, etc., putting it out there basically that you are living there full time, say stuff like documents are good for that. Basically, have some bank statements delivered to the land, have some sort of bills delivered to the land pretty much as soon as you get there. Then 10 years later, as long as you've still got bills coming to the land, you can prove you've been there 10 years. I'll do a separate video on how you can prove the certificate of lawfulness at a later date. But it is one of them. By registering yourself as not living there on council tax, you are playing a bit of a juggling game, and it comes to 10 years later, you could scupper yourself. So the ultimate best way is to have one person registered as living somewhere else, and then have another person who's registered as a nomad, so to speak. I believe nomad council tax is something like £150 a year because you are not living in a permanent residence. But they don't need to know your land is the permanent residence. As long as you can say, oh, I'm living with so-and-so at this address when they ask questions, not a lot can be done. They may get you into trouble, though, and you may have to pay council tax on the other address. It's a bit of a grey area, like I say. You can navigate them. You can maybe waffle the council in some instances, but majority of the time, this is going to be really difficult to do unless you have got absolutely solid, friendly neighbours who really don't care what you're doing because you're doing things very slowly and you're providing them a value to. And alongside this, you aren't going to be living there within your first year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe even your first 5 years of owning the land, I would say, without rocking a boat with your neighbours, because generally it's going to cause an issue for some people, isn't it? You're doing something that they want to do and have spent a lot of money to do, generally living in the countryside, and then you're coming along buying a piece of land for not that much money, building something for not that much money, and it could cause some jealousy, some controversy. So it's best, like I say, slowly. Don't anticipate moving onto the land instantly if you're going to be going down the no planning permission route. So I hope this gave everyone a bit of an idea of those two different methods. Now, as I said, the best method is definitely the field to farm method, because that is what I've done. Got myself plenty of barn space, I've got myself a house, got everything we need to be operating a pretty decent sized farming business now, and basically the dream has come true. I'm living in a field. So yeah, if you want to do the same, don't forget you are predominantly just looking for a 12.5 acre size piece of land. If you've got that 12.5 acres, all those things I mentioned previously, you can do. Skip back to the beginning of the video if you want to refresh yourselves. But barns, eventual house, everything is all on the cards as long as you've got that 12.5 acres of land. I think that just about covers it, but if you've got any more questions, drop them in the comment box below. And if you've watched this much of the video so far and you're not a subscriber, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because every subscribe makes a big difference on pushing videos on the algorithm, and every like and comment does too. So help a brother out, do all of it if you can.